Lena here, and this is my very belated April wrap-up. I don't know why this took so long besides using the excuse of school and work, because actually some of my favorite books of the year I mainly read in the month of April. April was a really good reading month for me, so I don't know why this has been so prolonged, but I read 13 books in April, and I DNF'd one that I'm going to briefly talk about real quick. I also read Harry Potter for the first time, which is something that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I'm going to lead up to it. These are in the order of how I read them. About 7 or 8 of these I read while on vacation. I was on vacation for the first week of April, and it's a lot of car driving, so I read a lot. I'm going to try to keep these to like a summary of like 1 minute per each, maybe even less. I even wrote notes to try to move this along fast. Okay. So to briefly talk about the one that I DNF'd, this is from like a poetry, it's a poetry magazine, I believe, that is like, it comes out monthly. This one's for January of 2016, and it has some of the authors that are featured here. This, I was excited because I found it in the free bin along with a lot of the other ones from like the series, and I think my main issue with it was they're themed. So this one was about eco-justice, and hang on for a second. Okay, hopefully that's better. Some fabricated lighting. Okay, so they're themed. This one is about eco-justice, or about how like plant life and our planet is dying. It kind of bored me, and it also was just mainly depressing when I did understand what was going on. It's kind of the prime example of poetry that I just don't get, and so I didn't really appreciate it as much as I thought that maybe other people out there who are more into poetry would. There's a section in the middle, though, that has art, and I thought the art was really gorgeous in all of them, but like, that was like the only kind of redeemable part for me, because I didn't care for the rest. Okay, next book that I actually finished, the first book that I officially read in April, is Love Her Wild by Atticus. This one is one that I gave a 4 to a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This one is, I've been wanting it since it kind of came out. I follow Atticus on Instagram, and I've always liked their poetry. It's very aesthetic, it's moody, and it has like the photography amongst with the poetry. It's very Instagram poetry-like, and I really liked it. It's broken up into 3 sections, Love, Her, and Wild. I think I gave Love a 4 out of 5 stars. I have my notes here. Yeah, it was cute, it was sweet, it was kind of the prime example of modern poetry done right. Then the second section that is Her, I loved. I gave that section a 5 out of 5 stars, which is kind of more romance poetry, kind of dedicated to this one woman that he's speaking about. So I wrote in my review that I would either want somebody to speak about me the way that he's speaking about like this woman or these women, I don't know if it's about more than one, in this poetry, or somebody who inspires me to write that kind of beautiful poetry about them. One or the other, it was legit. And the last section, called Wild, I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. It was my least favorite section. Didn't really feel like it had much substance. It felt like it was just him trying too hard, rather than the other ones that felt more like they were coming from the heart and they were more authentic. But yes, I would definitely recommend this to people who like poetry, specifically modern poetry. I tabbed it a lot. It was good. Next, here, I kind of did this weird thing where I read a poetry book, a manga, and a full-length novel, poetry book, manga, full-length novel. So the first full-length novel that I read, wait, hang on, I'm going to the manga first. This, I've talked about the series before. It's The World's Greatest First Love. This is volume 7. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars because I'm obsessed with this series. It's angsty, especially the main storyline. The last storyline, I call it, what's it called? Like dessert, because I think that they're just like a sweet finish to the end. This one, I think, was just focused on the one couple, and it had a birthday storyline in it, and there was a whole section where they were saying that the main character, one of them, gets like this certain look in his face when he's looking at the guy that he's interested in, and it's just so cute. It's a slow burn male-male romance. I've talked about these already. They're, like, fantastic. Okay, so the next section that people have been waiting for me to, like, read this book forever, like, people in my personal life and everything. This is Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I did not think I would. It's not my main jam. It's not the kind of books that I'm normally into. Hang on, my fan is, like, going crazy. And because it was so overhyped and people kind of put this book on its, like, a certain pedestal, I wanted to not like it, if that makes sense, because I don't like things that people act like this is the highest pinnacle of, like, books, and it can't get any higher than this. And this is not my favorite book of all time, but it is definitely up there now, and it's definitely one of my favorite books that I've read all year. I had seen the movie before, the first movie, and it's pretty much exactly the same. So I think that that's also a reason why these movies are so popular, because they kind of stay true to the source material and all that stuff. It was wonderful. I loved it. I loved the writing. I loved the illustrations, because this is the illustrated edition. My work got the first 3 in, and so they were really cheap, and I picked all 3 of them up, and I was like, maybe it's finally time to start. And I loved it. I love Harry. He's just like a precious little bean who deserves the world. Same for Hermione and Ron, and my favorite character in this was probably Hagrid. I didn't expect to love him as much as I did. I remember enjoying him from the film, but not as much as I loved him in this. I love characters that are kind of huge and, like, people are intimidated by them, but they're actually just, like, little softies. I love characters like that, and he's, like, the prime example of that. And the only things that I didn't like about this book, it wasn't enough to affect the rating, because I still gave it a full 5 out of 5 stars, but just that bothered me, and that still really bother me to this day, is that, one, Harry going back to live with the Dursleys, I believe is how you pronounce it. Excuse me, it's my first time. It was a very abusive and, like, a mentally and emotionally toxic environment for Harry to live in, and I get he was living there and they didn't know how messed up it was until, like, they got him, but he shouldn't have been sent back after the first year of Hogwarts was over. I feel like it was sending him back into a very potentially dangerous situation, and sure, they kind of made the jokes of, like, you know, the fact that they don't know that he's not allowed to practice magic outside of the school, but I still thought that it was a very dangerous situation to put him in. But I loved it. Surprisingly, I thought that I would like Draco, because I always loved Tom Felton. I've always been a proud Slytherin, even before reading the series, just from seeing, like, the films, like, a long time ago. But I did not like him at all in this. He was a little shit. I hated him. But, yes, definitely I understand what the hype is about. I'm excited to read the other ones, especially because I haven't seen the films for the other ones. I think just the one that Robert Pattinson was in, and I don't remember anything from it. So it will be fresh to me, the story, and I am excited to finally get into that and take you guys along on that journey. Next, hang on, dropped my notes for stuff. Okay, the next book that I have here, it's not necessarily poetry, but it's kind of close to it, and this is the Tiny Book of Tiny Stories 2 by Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Wiro. This is from his Hit Record project. I've talked about reading the first one, I think, in my last wrap-up, and let me see. Yeah, basically gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, said I liked it better than the first one. They're cute, they're aesthetic, I would recommend these to anyone. There is a poem in here about how there's, like, depressing music, and it can make you so happy because it kind of reflects how you feel, and it's a weird thing that you have to read to get it, but, like, I tabbed a majority of this. The drawings are gorgeous. I would just recommend these to everyone, and now, like, my mom and my sister and anyone who sees me reading them gets really interested in these whenever, like, I talk about them, because they're legit. Next, I have Junjo Romantica. Yeah, this is volume 1, and this is a male-male romance manga, because that's the thing that I'm into, that I picked up at Goodwill, and I seen that it was volume 1, so I was like, why not try it out? It's broken up into 2 parts. There's Junjo Romantica and Junjo Ego. I did not like the second part. It was following a different couple, and I didn't really care for it much, but the first part I found a bit more interesting. I think overall I gave this a 3 to a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The first couple, I liked that storyline, and that's the only one that I really remember, and that is about this guy who basically meets this romance novelist that writes gay love stories, and this guy who writes these books is in love with this main teenage boy's brother, and he ends up falling in love with this guy. It's a very complicated, weird love triangle square thing, and it's weird, but I liked it. It also has this really, like, weird, unique art style that's kind of more, like, blocky and stuff, and I've heard so many people trash the art style in reviews of this on Goodreads, but I actually liked it. It reminded me of, like, kind of if Frank Miller decided to illustrate a manga. Like I said, liked the main storyline more, so if I do continue, it's just mainly to see what's going on with those characters, but I don't know if I am motivated enough to pick this up anytime soon, because manga is really expensive, and there's other series that I'm more amped to spend full price on at the moment. Next, I have another book that is now one of my all-time favorite books. It is definitely one of my favorite books that I've read this year. It is fantastic, and it's Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. I've seen a lot of people haul this, but almost no one actually talk about reading it. This is about a black, asexual, biromantic woman who is kind of in her college years, and it's fantastic. I would give trigger warnings for kind of... I can't really say things without spoiling too much, but people have openly said a breakup scene in the very beginning of the book, and then there's kind of just a scene that is kind of spoiler if I mention it at the end of the book, that I think those scenes would be triggering for ace people, so I would just kind of keep that in mind before going in. Hold on. Okay, I needed to put my hair up. But yes, this. Alice, the main character, is one of my new book girlfriends. I love her so much. She is fantastic. She is kind of the representation that I feel like everyone needs, especially in YA. She has so many speeches and things that she says about racism, sexism, kind of discrimination against ace people and stuff like that, about her coming out process as a bisexual girl of color, because it's usually hard for people who are in, like, groups such as, like, black people, Hispanic people, people who are people of color to come out compared to white people. I loved it so much. Since it's mainly about ace, like, representation, there's not, like, steamy scenes, but there is just, it's pure fluff. And, I love her a lot. She felt like a real person. Takumi, the main love interest, is supposed to be, like, this sexy Asian guy, and, I pictured him as Godfrey Gao because I don't know many Asians, but we need more of that in YA. The only other example outside of this book that I can think of is Magnus Bane, and I loved him so much. They were so cute and sweet. I want to be part of their couple because they're both so attractive, fully fleshed out, good human beings, and their romance was one of the best that I've ever read in YA, or even just in general. The friendships in this were A+. Feeny, her best friend, I pictured her as Heather Morris. She's just, like, legit, and they kind of show the toxic elements of friendships as well, because that is part of any relationship, that you fight and you go through these hard things and then you work through them because you care about the people enough to. I love this. Everyone should read this. I constantly was scared because I love this cover more than anything in the world, and I was scared that the inside would not match the beauty of the outside, but it did. This is fantastic. Didn't mean to talk about this as long as I did, but what are you going to do? So we're going to try to keep this brief. Next one, I don't have the cover here. I'm just going to talk about it. This is, I read on my e-reader, The Tale of Emily Winesnap, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah, and it's by Liz Kessler. And this I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. This is the first book in a long-ass middle grade series about this girl who finds out that she's a mermaid. It's my little cousin's favorite book series, and then I saw that the whole series in like a bundle was 99 cents on the Kindle store, so I decided to pick it up. I realized it must be good if she's like that crazy about the series. I started reading it, and holy crap, it's like intense, it's fun, it has you like on the edge of your seat, there's so much action, there's so much weird crap that goes on in it, and it is so much more than just a girl finding out she's a mermaid like you would think it would be because it's a middle grade. It was so good. There is a other like mermaid that she meets in this book, and I think her name is Shauna or something like that. Hang on, I'm gonna check my notes. Something like that, I can't see it. Oh yeah, Shauna. I pictured her as the main mermaid from Aquamarine because I loved that movie when I was a kid. I've always been obsessed with mermaid things. I used to want to be a mermaid, and I just loved this so much. The parents were amazing in this book. You don't really see good parent elements in middle grade or YA or mainly anything, except in very few books. And the parents were great in this. The love story between the parents, when they do like flashbacks and stuff, was phenomenal. I loved this. Gonna continue on in the series. The only things that bothered me was that there was moments where it felt like there was plot points and stuff that were very obvious to me, and it took forever for the main character to kind of connect the dots in her head, and I think that's just because she's a kid, so it's kind of mapping it out for kids who are reading this so that they can understand, because maybe they're not as good as like the context clues and picking that up that early on in their reading like life. So I get it. But like I am excited to continue with the series. So there's that, and that was the last book I think I read on my vacation because it was just kind of a beachy poolside read. Well, besides this one, which is One Punch Man. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is volume 2. I bought this on the road, full price, because I really wanted to continue on with it. I got it at Tate's when I was in Florida. The plot is nothing new compared to the first one, but oddly enough, after reading this one, it made me appreciate the first one even more, if that makes sense. The relationship between Saitama and Genos, I ship it so much. I love them together so much. I love both of their personality types and how they mesh together. I love the art style. I went out immediately after reading this and got this Saitama Nendroid that we had in my store. I love the anime. I've been watching the episodes that correspond with the manga as I've slowly been reading it. And there's a character named Sonic that gets introduced in this volume that at first I thought was a female because of the long hairstyle and the delicate features, who is an assassin. Actually a dude, but I love the character so much. Really hardcore, gritty, kind of horror-esque scenes that they have. So, yes, definitely continue on with the series. This video is going to be super fucking long anyway, even though I'm trying to make it not be. Let's see, what else? This one. This is a bind-up of 2 different books by Joe Gibson. I read the second one in it because I had already read the first one, which is like a pretty chunky book out of the 2, called The Dead Girl. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think originally I gave it a 4, decided to bump it down because it hasn't stuck with me as long. The experience of reading it was really fun, but it's one that's not going to leave a lasting impression, I don't think, when you're done with it. Like I said, well, maybe I didn't say it, it's a 20-year-old book. Like, these are like the really old paperback horror books. It was re-released with a new cover and a bind-up. So they're very sexist. The main character, she's pretty, like, one of those dumb, annoying ones that kind of is stereotypical, but I had never read a YA thriller before. I thought this was fantastic for my first one, like, because it was really exciting and fun. Yeah, there's the plot of this, because I realize most people know what the other ones are about for the most part, or their later ones in the series, but the plot of this one, because I assume no one's heard of it, is about this girl who, her parents die, and then she goes to live off with her aunt and uncle, and her aunt and uncle just have lost a child. Her cousin has passed away, and when she gets there, everyone is acting weird around her, and it turns out she is like a dead ringer for her cousin. She looks exactly like her cousin that passed away. So it's kind of like she thinks that actually her cousin passed away under suspicious circumstances and that she could have been murdered, and now she's scared that whoever murdered her is going to try to, like, whoever murdered her cousin is now going to try to murder her. That is the main plot of the book. It is very exciting. I think that I would reread it in my life. It's just one that I haven't really thought much about since finishing. Yeah. And a disclaimer that these have a lot of typos. I'm like, I guess the editor was on vacation, but I still really enjoyed it, for the most part. And yes, next one. Okay, the next one is another one, like, world famous book. So, it's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I've been planning on reading this for a majority of my life. I'm in love with this edition, by the way. I think I've mentioned this in any, like, point in time where I hold up this book. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, which, considering this is most people's favorite book in the world, is probably controversial. I don't know. It felt like it was way too long. Could have been, like, easily 100 pages shorter. It felt like there was a lot of filler, and that there was lots of moments where stuff wasn't happening in between actions, but when things were happening, it was freaking amazing. It was beautifully written, and the character development was very well done. It's just, there was lots of moments where nothing was happening. Darcy's alright. He was barely in there. With how much people are obsessed with him, you would think he was in there more. I loved the father. Hated the mother. And Elizabeth Bennet is now one of my favorite, like, I'm in love with her so much. She was the best thing about this book. If Elizabeth Bennet wasn't how she is, this would have probably been much lower for me. But I think it's a grade that will kind of age well for me. I might like it over time. I might watch the movie and realize I like it. Who knows? But the last, 50 pages really picked up and kind of went hardcore, and I liked the ending, but for a while there was nothing. And I hate Mr. Collins with a burning passion. Her creepy, incestual cousin. No. But yeah, that's my review on Pride and Prejudice. I might reread it in the future in my life, but not anytime soon, not for, at least the next few years. And yes, hang on. We have 3 more books. But to try to be real quick, The World's Greatest First Love, Volume 8. Much like I've said about any of the other volumes, I'm obsessed with the series. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm trash for it. It's a slow burn romance, but I'm kind of hoping that it's not as slow. I'm waiting for more stuff to progress because it's, literally going at, a snail pace. But I love it so much. I always tab the crap out of these. And yes, the Kisa storyline. Love it so much. The volume before gave his boyfriend's point of view, which you never got to see before. I just love these so much, and I'm obsessed with them. And that's the thing. Okay. Second to last. I read Space Battle Lunchtime Volume 1, Lights, Camera, Snaction by Natalie Race. This is about a chef. She's a pastry chef named Peony, like Penny, but with an O in the middle of it. It's really weird. And she gets recruited to be part of this intergalactic space cooking competition show. She is precious. She's a precious little cinnamon roll. This character named Neptunina, I think that's how you pronounce it. She's the one right here. Fucking love her. She's a babe. I want to draw both of them in really cutesy couple, poses, because they're totally gay together. If I read the second volume and they're not together, I'm going to be so disappointed. It's only 2 volumes long, so I really need to hunt down the second volume because this one ended on a cliffhanger that I'm not okay with. I freaking loved it. It's adorable. It's, thrilling. It's exciting and cute and just everything. If you like graphic novels, if you like things that are cute, if you like contemporary or comics in general, you should read this. And then the last thing that I gave a 3 out of 5 stars to, not because it was bad, but just because it didn't have enough substance, is Star Wars: The Clone Wars, The Holocron Heist. I really liked this arc in the TV show. The storyline that happened. I got this because I buy anything that I see that's Star Wars and relatively cheap, and because it has Ahsoka on the cover, and I'm Ahsoka trash. It has really nice screen caps and stuff like that from the TV show, but things like this, I find they always feel really choppy when they're trying to give it to kids. It gets watered down and it's not fully fleshed out, but it was alright. Yeah, I like anything with Ahsoka in it, which is what probably gave it a solid 3, because if it was a random episode, one of the ones that doesn't have her in it, it would probably be lower. That's about it. There's lots of things. I might do a wrap-up for shows and movies that I've been watching lately, because I used to do them at the end of my wrap-ups, but now they're getting way too long, because I guess I've been reading more or just talking more. If you liked this, be sure to give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. Yeah.